the microphone is yours.
Very good evening to all of you. Truth and reconciliation in Kashmir. Why did I pen down that epilogue to Article 370 judgment, which was a concurring judgment, was because I truly believe that the state, which has been very naturally endowed, has seen very troublesome times. And those troublesome times has reached a situation where you had in 1990 a mass exodus of the Kashmiri Pandit community from there. This happened before, it happened again. And 30 years has not seen them move back. So what is that is required to be done that in your country people who are displaced from their homes are able to go back? Is prosecution after 30 years a possibility? Can you do something about it? Very difficult because the evidences are gone, the other aspects are gone. So I don't think that is something, a way which could continue. So it's in that context and looking to some of the experiences of in different countries that it weighed with me. So if you look at Clinker's right on the Truth and International Law Commissions, they said the importance is that the right of a victim of a human rights violation is the truth in itself. So it paves the way for a possible reconciliation. And if we look to international cases of, say, robberies and Honduras handed down in the American court, state has an obligation to prevent human rights violations. But if they can't do that, it at least has an obligation to acknowledge that such a thing has happened and, if possible, fix the responsibility. The Albert Sachs, while dealing with the apartheid regime, and that is what I must say inspired me to write that last portion, said that the commission always was, truth came out, I quote, "You don't have the denial. The bodies were recovered, decent burials were given, people learned about the last moments of their loved ones, and there was a sense of public acknowledgement of terrible things that were done. It was enormously positive and affirmative for the whole society, but it wasn't coupled with sending the people who came forward to testify what had happened to them in jail. This was the encouragement to enable the truth to come out." As I said, fixing responsibility would become a problem in this scenario, and it would discourage the people to come forward and state the truth. Even participants in what has gone wrong did come forward at that time, felt pained by what they had done, but acknowledged so the society could move forward. This has been the story in Rwanda. This has also been the story in Uganda, where after doing so, some of the people were prosecuted in a different way, were threatened, so the report never came out. If we have to work this in the context of Kashmir, I feel that it must not be a criminal court. It ought to be a fostering a national reconciliation. A balance needs to be struck between endeavoring to heal the individual relations between offenders and the communities. And this is more significant because this has lasted long enough, and I think it's time that the peace movement goes further. My view is some couple of things which are important is that a Truth and Reconciliation Commission is to be established to address the impunity, break the cycle of violence, and provide a forum for both the victims. So commission has to be an adjunct to a criminal court, not a court of law by itself. The quantum of evidence will be very large. So amounts of evidence which may, by way of direct witness testimonies, etc., say in South Africa was 22,000 testimonies. So there has to be an ability and novel method of assessing and classifying the evidence, may even require statistical analysis and technological support. I also believe that the support systems have to be there for deposing before the commission, and one should not face a scenario where people deposing then feel that in a social context or in a criminal context, they feel threatened. I would also like to propose certain aspects that, in my view, are crucial to the functioning of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Firstly, a credibility of the commission. It's extremely important that the commission must be manned by persons having moral and professional repute and credibility. Need not necessarily all of them may be in judicial in nature. Having a place of conduct of and set best practices, because how the integrity and professional ethics have to be maintained, how the evidence will be recorded, there must be a plan for it. And there has to be support from stakeholders. Commission would necessarily require support from national agencies, coupled with the political will, I think, which is most important, as also financial resources to undertake what can be put as a Herculean task. I noted in my opinion that the dispensation to devise the best methods of the Commission must be left to the constitutionalism which evolves to encompass responsibility both for state and not state actors with respect to human rights violations. While I get down to the question answers, I would like to just, this prelude which I thought I should set forth what the scope and thought process was. I'm reminded of the narrative poem by Henry Wordsworth Longfellow, the Song of the Hiawatha. All your strength is in your union. All your danger is in discord. Therefore, be at peace henceforward, and as brother live together. It's time for the people of Kashmir to embrace the past, and people who left the valley to come back with dignity and peace. Thank you.
Justice Kaul, thank you so much, sir. When we did this conference last year, it was your last working day, I remember, in the Supreme Court, and you had a farewell dinner to attend, so you were unable to be with us. Thank you for joining us today. Let me ask you the most human question. Have you had a chance to go back to Srinagar, to travel to Kashmir in the recent past? What are your thoughts about it now?
Oh, many times. I have been traveling almost every year, more than once, to Kashmir. I've seen it come out of that scenario where it was. I've been to difficult areas also. Been to a temple downtown where my family were the priest, and they said, you can't go. I said, no, I'm going, whether without security or otherwise. I've seen tourists come from all around. I've seen them walking the Jhelum, walking the Dal Lake, and crowds at 10, 11 at night. I last year stayed after 30 years in my own house with my family and my children who were walking areas there. And interestingly, I had an opportunity to invite some of my neighbors whom I knew their forefathers but never would know this generation. And they said, well, someday all of you coming back is a security to ourselves itself. Gave me a lot of encouragement.
Interesting.
Right. And talking about Kashmiri Pandits particularly, do you think after the abrogation of Article 370 and certain other measures that have been taken by the government of India, there has been a sense of justice that they feel? Or do you think the last 30 years have just been brushed under the carpet?
No, there is a problem which started, let's understand, before 1989. It culminated in 1989. I could sense that going wrong at least for a few years, not to this extreme. But in 1984 onwards, I thought there was a problem. 87 afterwards saw it aggravated. So the issue is for them, how do you get them back? People who have lived aside 30 years are not going to suddenly uproot themselves from a new place and come back. But yet, everybody who stays in a village and goes to a city or travels to somewhere else for work, they would like to keep a small place by themselves to get back home. I think it is important that they must feel secure where they can get back to their own homes. I'm not a great believer in the ghetto situation. Yeah. I feel they should be able to go and live in peace where they want. That's the only way they will reconnect with the system.
Is the situation then becoming, sir, of truth and reconciliation? To set up this commission, you mentioned there'll have to be political will. We've had sort of action in the past where individuals that you know have been appointed to be sort of friends of the process. Many of these have not really succeeded. Is the time right for something like this?
So let's understand, there have been two phases. There have been phases when the Kashmiri Pandit community moved out. There's been a phase after that when, to save the nation, the army moved in. When army moves in, there are bound to be certain... the army is meant to fight a war. It's not meant to control law and order. So there will be situations. So there have been sufferers pre that. There's another section of society which is post that. But it cannot be a remedy only for the post. What has happened is the post-suffering is what has been focused on. There has been a denial mode, I believe, that look, we don't know how the Kashmiri Pandit left, why they left. That's not acceptable. You have to, if you to heal them, you have to accept that they left because there was a situation there making them leave. And therefore now when you're talking about they're coming back, you must create an environment which will encourage them to be secure in their home place, whether for a short period or some period in a year.
Okay, and talking about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and you spoke at length about this in your introductory speech, would you be willing to be part of it?
See, I feel a very difficult choice. I would have liked to, but I think the fact that I am party and author to this judgment may create some element of conflict of interest for me to be able to perform this task.
So what was in your mind, sir, now that some time has elapsed, and when this case came before you, the government had made some moves, they had made some decisions, and the case was brought before you for review. What were you thinking? Was it simply a point of technical legality, or was there a larger question that you had to toy yourself with?
So see, one part of it is the constitutionalism of it. One may disagree with our view, one may agree with our view. That's how the situation is. No part of society is always in sync with what one may hold. But I didn't hesitate, I think, to look into the constitutional side and keep my personal side to some extent away from it. I was not really prejudiced, as one may say, by existence of Article 370. Personally, my family has been a state subject there, so for me to hold property, do any of these things was very permissible in the given regime also, so I know. But it had to be tested on a constitutional scheme of things, where 5 judges, including myself, opined in a particular way. Chief Justice Chanchud penned down the main judgment. I gave a concurring view. And why I specifically wrote, apart from the direction I was choosing, was also a very strong belief that I must write this epilogue, because I felt that so much time has passed, we must move forward. If we keep looking backwards, then things will never improve. After all, the country went through 1947, a partition, which is a trauma by itself also. My family bore the brunt of that also. But everybody comes out of it. People came out of it and got along with their life. And there is some amount of solace to be provided. A similar kind of a thing has to arise from what has happened here. And I do believe with the current scenario, with tourism being there, with people traveling, it's a right kind of time to provide a healing touch, also with now an elected government in power there.
Talking about healing touch, and there have been reservations that have been made. Seats have been reserved in the assembly elections recently that happened the first time since 2019. Do you think these are just, tokenism that is being handed out to the Kashmiri Pandits, to the POK refugees?
So the nominated seats for Kashmiri Pandits, one for POK refugees?
Yeah, so I can't deny there's some element of tokenism which comes, but the tokenism is important in so many ways. In so many parts of society, we do have a system of tokenism to take over. And that tokenism sends a signal.
Yeah.
And I think we can't reduce the significance of that tokenism, even if it amounts to, say, 1 or 2 people being representative there.
I have to ask you a larger question, sir. I know our time is limited, but we have not only seen the abrogation, but we also saw the creation of Ladakh. There is a conversation regarding statehood. But what do you make about, from the governance point of view, as you see it, the creation of Ladakh as a separate entity of governance?
So the idea of, possibly it's a political idea. The political idea was that Ladakh should be administered separately. It's a very, very small population, a larger area in that sense. Whether those aspirations have been met or not, I don't think I'm in a position really to say. There are some troublesome aspects out of it, where possibly the Ladakh area expected something more to come out of it, or they were feeling they were not getting their due in a trial scenario. So, on so far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, the government has been committed to restoration of the state. So I presume that will happen sooner than later.
Yeah, they made that submission in court. So when it comes to the governance of the state, the security situation still remains troublesome. Is it fixable in our times?
So, once I was in Kashmir and somebody asked me, how secure is it? I said, as secure as any other part of the world. Look around the world and see the scenario. Look at Delhi at times what happens. The only thing is because Kashmir has been through a problem, so any incident gets blown into certain level. The valley consists of 10 districts, out of which 3.5 districts are a little troubled. The incidents occur there, what is happening. But when it says so, nobody says which part of Kashmir has this incident taken place. Incident at times occur in the Jammu region at the border areas. So look at a world scenario, I think. Why isolate Kashmir itself? Look at well-developed nations like England and US, what is happening. So the level of security, the level of thought processes, level of how people can travel will in a sense depend on the environment all over the world. I don't think it is today anything worse than that. Some incidents may occur, but especially I know, for example, they don't touch the tourists at all because they know that they've seen that the tourists coming means their livelihood improves. The whole economy is based on tourism. Everything else is linked to tourism. They are not really industries or any other things which are sources of income. So the tourism needs to be tackled at a very, very professional level, I think, there. As I believe that all over the country, we are not looking to tourism as much as we should, considering that we have such a varied culture which is available in our country.
Okay, last thought, sir. It's been some time now since the judgment came out. It's been almost a year since your retirement from the bench. Are there takers, when you have conversations, are there believers that yes, this is a process that needs to happen, a truth and reconciliation on the likes of what happened, for which Nobel awards were won? Are there takers for this?
So if you look at, I have not seen any dialogue on it at all. How does a dialogue occur? A dialogue occurs where we expected the government to take a little forward step on this. Unless they do, I don't think this will move forward. Number of people ask me, you wrote this, when is it going to happen? I said, how can I decide or tell you how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen? I really don't think it will honestly come by unless there is a concerted view by citizenry and the government to take it in this direction to heal the wounds. It will want people to look beyond just politics of it to a healing process.
Yeah, moving forward, taking forward this process, again, what is it that the government can do more besides, talking about abrogation 370? Is there a need right now to recognize that the genocide that happened, the killing of the Kashmiri Pandits back in the day, 30 years ago, it should be recognized as such?
Yes, the community expects that. I was being in office, I was more secluded, I couldn't. Post the period of retirement, some of them came to me, and what my feeling of interaction with them is, what they're interesting is that you can't take us back to what it was originally. At least acknowledge something wrong has been done to us and facilitate us to have our small places where we can go. That's, I believe, from my conversations, the expectation of the community that has been displaced, that, create that environment for us. There has to be a political will to do it. There has to be a people's will to do it, I think, if we have to move.
You said conversations need to happen. So for 5 years, we've done hundreds of hours of programming on the concept that the seats that were reserved or left empty in the erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir Assembly for the areas that are now POK should be filled. They should be filled with POK refugees, should be filled with Kashmiri Pandits. We have now seen 3 of these seats filled. So yes, if the conversation begins, it's a process that can happen, which is why we're here today, to have that dialogue. This is being telecast on 9 news channels. It will be published in at least 5 of our newspapers. Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul, as always, sir, it was a treat to have you. Thank you so much for joining us and speaking your heart on this subject, sir.
Thank you for calling me there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Can we have a question? Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Full sympathies, your feelings, what you just projected. But I would like to know that, since you have got the knowledge, that since '89, when this happened, everybody knew which house was occupied by who. The government knows, the police knows. Why? What stops the government from taking over those houses and ask those people, how are you here? Show us the paper. If they don't, give them 1 week to vacate and lock the house up. Make it a government property. Then ask the Kashmiri Pandit to please come back. If he doesn't, then government takes it over and gives it to somebody else. But secondly, all the people who are staying there, aren't they part of the sleeper cells which India is facing? If that be so, what stops us? Because they are aiding the terrorism which is going on. They're continuously doing it. So we must do something about it. And do you think, sir, that security is complete or it has to be upgraded? The whole area should be under one command and control.
So I mentioned this, that just creating ghettos of the community, to my mind, is not the solution. The person must be able to move into his house, his property, his base. That's the only way after 30 years that the next generation will be encouraged to come back there. I would tend to agree with you that possibly there needs to be a survey of people who, there are laws in question where they said if people have sold in difficult times, something should be looked into. I don't think much has been done there, I must say. And I believe that's the way forward. So far as command structure is concerned, I think there is a security command structure in place. Please understand this is a cross-border and within-border problem, more encouraged by the cross-border issues. And it will always remain some part of a challenge, as other parts are there, a little more than that. But it's not unsurmountable as a situation. And I think if the community tends to come back, it'll help in assimilation with the current community. Some of the youngsters who have not seen the better times when people have lived together.
Sanjay Kishan Kaul, thank you so much, sir. What an honor it's been for us to have an authority as yourself on the Constitution. I request now Mr. Kartikeya Sharma, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, to please join us on stage and present a token of our appreciation to Justice Kaul. Could we please have